So my short stopover to see if I can sit behind me. I didn't change my seating position, but now let's check. So I'm jumping in. That is easy. Yeah, that works well. I have more than enough space in front of my knees. Regarding to my head space, there's nothing left, but we have this big sunroof in the car. So without that, I would expect we have about 3-4 centimeters more, and that then will work. But if you see me, I'm 1.95 meters, I'm quite big. So if there would be somebody at the front, 1.80 meters, 1.85 meters, and the same here, that will work even for long distances. Skoda offers 3 different battery sizes for the Enyaq, which are 51, 58 and 77 kilowatt hours net capacity. In our case, we're driving the biggest one, and that means that car offers a range with a fully loaded battery of over 500 kilometers. If you use the middle-sized battery, which is 58 kilowatt hours, that means you should have about 400 kilometers of maximum range. If you want to charge the car, you can of course do that home at your household socket, but you may calculate 2.3 kilowatts, 77 must go in. That takes a while. If you don't want to wait so long, just use a standard wall box, which means you can charge with up to 11 kilowatts, and that means 6 to 8 hours and the car is fully charged. But if you're in a rush or if you're on a motorway, you of course can do quick charging DC, which means a maximum of 125 kilowatts is possible, and that means 5 to 80% of the battery in less than 40 minutes. The Enyaq offers a maximum boot capacity with the rear seats up of 585 liters. If you fold down that bench completely, that increases up to 1,710. What I really do like with the boot is that area here is completely flat, and beneath that you do find extra compartments which fits perfectly, for instance, for your charging cable and other stuff, and nothing will roll around inside of your boot. If you want to tow something with the Enyaq, you can of course do that. The towing capacity is 1 ton, and you could do 75 kilograms on top of the hook, for instance, for your bicycles or anything else. With the Enyaq, you don't have to miss any Simply Clever solutions. You will find, for instance, things like the clip under the front window, or you do find the umbrella in the door. You do find a big amount of hooks here in the boot. And of course you do find the ice scratcher, but no longer under the lid of the gas tank. You will now find it right here. And the reason for that is that this lid must stay open to charge the car, so somebody could steal that. And so here it is definitely the better place. From the front, the 1.88 meter wide Enyaq is clearly recognizable as a Skoda. The large radiator grille features the typical Skoda shape and comes with a chrome frame. LED headlights are always on board. Optionally, the so-called light and side package can be ordered, which includes matrix LED headlights amongst other things. My test car is featuring the bigger battery pack, which means we do have 77 kilowatt hours net capacity, and that is enough for the car for a maximum range of over 500 kilometers. And on top we do have the 150 kilowatt strong electric engine on the rear axle on board, which is, if you want the old number, 204 horsepower, and that provides us on top with 310 newton meters of maximum torque, and that works really well with the car. So when you drive the car in comfort and normal mode, it's just an easy, very easy and enjoyable ride. If you want to push it a bit more, you just change your driving to S, which means sport. Then the car gets a bit more crisp, a bit more sporty, but it is not really very dynamic. It's more a cruiser than a sports car. If you want to have a more sporty feeling, I think you should wait until the Enyaq RS is available. The Enyaq always features a full digital cockpit, which means we do have a bit smaller one than with other Skoda cars, because we do not have anything like water temperature, oil temperature anymore in an electric car, but still 5.5 inch as standard for free. On top you get at least a 10-inch display here for the center console to work with the infotainment. That's a touchscreen, but as soon as you buy the Skoda Enyaq 60, you do have 13-inch, which is a massive screen, and it's very nice to work with that one. Behind that you do of course find a satellite sat-nav system. You do find online informations like just-in-time parking information, pricing at gas stations and all that stuff. And of course you can configure your home screen if you want, or you can use any other things on that big screen out of this massive menu here. Overall, the Enyaq is 4.65 meters long, 1.62 meters high and has a wheelbase of 2.77 meters.
Although Skoda declares it as an SUV, the proportions are reminiscent of a station wagon or a more sporty minivan. However, the Enyaq has its very own look.
The craftsmanship and the materials inside of the Enyaq are really, really nice. We do find, let's say, above the level of the center console, all soft touch, so no plastic. But on top you do find glossy materials, glossy black for instance, and beneath that then you do find, of course, plastic. But that's a Skoda, and if you have a look inside of the Volkswagen, that's absolutely no difference. Something that really catches your eyes are these new door handles, because they're now aside of the buttons to lift the windows, and this gives the whole door interior so a completely unique look. I really do like this a lot.
At the rear, in addition to many horizontal lines, the sharply drawn split LED taillight stands out. Together with a large roof spoiler, they emphasize the width and makes the Enyaq standing on the road solidly.
The space the Enyaq offers is really nice. So even for a tall person like me, I can really sit upright comfortably inside of my car. I do find a nice position for the steering wheel, so everything is the way it should be. The only difference is that my feet are quite high up for an SUV, but this is more like in a standard car, but it's not uncomfortable. So you do really have enough space to enjoy the drive, and as you can see, I have some head space left and I'm nearly 2 meters tall. Regarding to the compartments, the Enyaq really features more than enough. So you do find quite big compartments in the doors, driver and co-driver, and you do have a very nicely structured center console here. At the front you do find 2 opportunities to wirelessly charge your mobile phones. Behind that you do find 2 cup holders, then a bigger compartment, and aside of that you do find a very small joystick to change the gears, and behind that you do find this very comfortable armrest with a massive compartment underneath. If you're on the rear bench, you of course find compartments in the doors, and if you want to have a cup holder, you use the armrest in the middle of the rear seats.
For the very first time, there are so-called design collections available for a Skoda. They should be reminiscent of modern living worlds and offer matching colors and materials for the interior. You can choose from Loft as standard, Lodge as a particular sustainable variant, Lounge with a very modern look, Suite with a touch of luxury, and Eco Suite with, amongst other things, environmentally friendly tanned leather.
The seat inside of the Enyaq is really very comfortable, and you can sit inside of that for long times. What I really do like is, even for tall people like me with nearly 2 meters height, the headrest is absolutely perfectly adjustable, something I really do enjoy. The only downside is, if you're a guy who wants to drive sporty and all the time very dynamic, I think the car could deliver a bit more of support with this seat, but that's only something if you really want to push the car to the limits. So if you're somebody like this, you should have a try before you order this kind of a seat. So now we're on the motorway with our Skoda Enyaq to see how the car works here. We've just started, and we have a figure about 22 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometer driven, which is not a bad number. And I want to see how the car works on the motorway. As you see, we drive 130 kilometers per hour. It's quite quiet in the car. If we go to 140, it's getting a bit more noise, some wind, but I think you can easily drive the car at 150 for a long time without losing any comfort. And nevertheless, the car is, by the way, limited at 160. The only Enyaq that can do a bit more would be the RS model, which is allowed to drive 180. But as said, for just cruising with 130, it's absolutely nice, very quiet, very comfortable. The most important assistance safety systems are always on board with the Enyaq, which means you do have a lane keeping assist, you do have emergency braking, and you do have a speed limiter and a cruise control. But of course you can have a lot more, which is really nicely packed. And one thing I really would say is important and absolutely nice to have is the so-called travel assist, which means you have partly autonomous driving on board if you want, as an optional feature. The Enyaq should take about 16 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometer driven. As you can see, we didn't match that figure. We're talking about 21 something. This is nothing where I would say that's bad, but we drove quite easy today, so I really did expect something a bit lower. That was my first short test drive with the new Skoda Enyaq. What I really do like with the car is the exterior design. I think it's quite special and unique, but I'm not sure, is this an estate? Is this a minivan or is this an SUV? But nevertheless, the car features loads of space at the interior for driver and co-driver as well as for the passengers. On top you get loads of luggage room and modern driver assistance safety systems as standard. On top, up to 13-inch touchscreen for the infotainment and always a full digital cockpit. So the drive with the car is an absolute pleasure. It's not a sporty car, it's more a cruiser, but this is something it really does very well. If you want to drive more sporty, just wait for the RS model. When we talk about consumption, we didn't match the figures of Skoda, so Note 16 we used more, about 20 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometer driven, but it's still a nice figure. And I think more important is we will order that car for a 100 kilometer test drive to really see how the consumption is when we do a standard drive, not a drive like we always do when we have to film the car.